earth, wind, and fire. We're looking at a fantasy, folks. Listen, wait for it. I love fantasies. Come on, get up and dance. Don't sit there. Don't smoke that. Put down that joint. Don't smoke. Don't drink. Every man had a fantasy. Here's mine. You can't erase my fantasy. You know my fantasy? That bird flu will disappear from humans. Is it possible? First slide. Here's today's topic: bird flu and your food. What is the flu? Well, if you look at H1N1, and it's called, and I'm not going to have you memorize these words, but the H represents something and the N represents something as far as a protein on the surface of the virus. And the transmission is either through water or sewage on the H5N1. That's also known as bird flu. Humans can get it. Very few cases, mostly in the eastern part of the world. And you see that map on the right? The map on the right shows where the number of patients, number of confirmed, and the number of deaths. Now, if you think China has 1.4 billion people, that's a lot of people. The Chinese Women's Army has over 300 million people. They can give them all a slingshot and come over here and they wipe us out. China had 12 deaths out of 1.4 billion. I don't know what the math is, but it's hardly anything. Next slide. We hear a lot of bird flu propaganda. It's facts stretched out to make a conclusion more palatable. Why? Here's my theory. Why? It's that there are companies that love to produce vaccines, put little people on lab coats, have a stock issue, and make billions on government contracts, even if the vaccine doesn't work. Oh, I've heard somebody say, Andy, I'm getting sniffles. I need to go get a vaccine. That proposition is pure hogwash and it's propaganda. Look at the person on the left. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she just using all of the resources in her war chest to fight the horrible disease? Well, the fact is, it only lasts a few days. Many people die from the flu, but a vaccine, 9 times out of 10, will miss the specific responses that generate defenses in your body. How do I know? Because look at the tests on the right. They're performed in the rats. The formulation has to change every time the influenza changes. Every time the virus changes, the pattern changes. They have circulating viruses. You don't know which one you have. Pandemics such as H5 and H7 are prevalent over a whole world area or a whole country. They're widespread, they're pervasive, they're rife, they're rampant. That means a lot of people have it. 12 dying out of 1.4 billion is not rampant to me. What it is, it's a propaganda message so we can support these wonderful pharmaceutical companies making billions of dollars once they inject it into you. And guess what? A lot of the ingredients will make you sick. They're made by different companies. Some people will use a monkey virus, a chicken, egg, whatever. Researchers mix together non-infectious virus-like particles, they're called VLPs, and then test them on mice. If so many mice die, then it's a valid testing. You don't know if you're going to die. Next slide. Avian flu in the United States, this is a bigger issue. This is what I'm talking about today, is that we have migratory birds. That's what avian means. And you see the graphic in the middle there? Those are flight paths. We cannot regulate them, legislate them, put out the military to kill them. They've been here before us. They're going to be here after humans. Birds fly on certain pathways. Look at those Canadian geese. I used to live in Monterey, and I'd go jogging around the park, and I'd see their remains and step on them and bring in my house. But guess what? They have sicknesses, diseases, viruses. They're called wild waterfowl, and they are asymptomatic. That means it doesn't show on them. They're not coughing. They don't have little tissues. They're not waiting for their injections at the Obama clinic. And they fly, and those somehow magically or horribly get into our commercial production of avian. Oh, Andy, I don't eat eggs. Really? We'll see how it affects you. 16 states have high pathogenic H5 or avionic flu. What does that mean to you? Oh, those are just rural states, Andy. We don't care about them. Well, the wild birds that have this asymptomatic condition also affect turkeys, chickens. We've lost 30 million birds so far this year. Next slide. Oh, Andy, you know what? You're really kind of ridiculous. We live in North America, and all those wonderful people in South America, they're all going to watch out for us. Really? Well, the birds are animals. They can fly wherever they'd like. Look at this graphic on the left, and you'll see how the European birds can have effect on North American and South American birds as well. The H5N1 strain in wild birds can be seen in North America. And by the way, they all mutate and change. They're not the same virus, but they're very similar to Asia, Europe, and Africa, which has caused already human cross-contaminations. H5N8, H5N2 are in domestic poultry. And how do they get there? They get through the air, through the feed, through the vehicles, or the birds, the water, and others. How? People that are involved in those, they know the symptoms, and the remedy is simply to kill all of them. Just like those birds on the right, those are wild. They do the same thing, so they won't cross-contaminate their other income-producing products. Next slide. Andy, I only eat greens. Yes, but not everybody does. Some people like a fryer. That's another name for a chicken. You see that graphic on the left? That's how they live, crammed in one together, stepping all over their poop and murdering those birds that aren't strong enough to survive. Oh, I have an omelet once in a while, Andy. Well, that's the same egg carton. Where does it come from? It doesn't come out of the sky. It comes out of egg-laying hens, in that example on the top. Oh, we have a Thanksgiving turkey to remember the Native Americans, how they helped the pilgrims. Well, that turkey doesn't drop out of the sky. People have to grow it. Look on the right. You're going to see an indoor production facility where the birds do the same thing. They're bigger, they're stronger. They kill each other, and then they end up magically in your freezer. And those come from very reputable producers. Well, the U.S. poultry industry production numbers were 8.54 billion broilers. That's a little chicken you guys eat. 99.8 billion eggs Americans are eating. And 238 million turkeys as of 2014. That's real data. Next slide. Well, it doesn't affect me, Andy. I see it a lot on the newspaper, and I'm just thinking I'm just a super person. It'll never hurt me, and the Democrats will stop it before it happens anyway. They love us. Well, let's look at the people who work in food plants. They may come in contact with the animals that have already been cross-contaminated. Look at the person who works out Farmer Joe. He could become cross-contaminated. And look at all the wonderful retirees that have time to feed, hand feed, all the wild birds that just fly through once a year. What does all that tell you? That the virus strains involved in the current outbreak have never infected humans. Yes, they have. That's a lie. The CDC has said, our loving government, there's a low possibility of infection. With people, however, in parentheses, people with direct or close contact and prolonged contact with infected birds, yes, they can get sick. So if you fit into these categories, watch out for yourself. Next slide. Here is the main economic impact. Here's where the rubber hits the road on these H1N1 or H1N5, all these poultry diseases. The price is going to get higher, folks. When you hear from the Midwest, that's where a lot of our products are grown, although a lot of them are here in the Central Valley. You see these grow houses for these poultry. You look at the chicken price. Oh, Andy, why is it higher? I can't imagine. Oh, these chickens. 48 million birds have been affected by avian flu since it first happened here in the U.S. That's a lot of birds. Iowa produces more egg-laying hens than in any other state in the country. Out of Iowa's 60 million hens, 21 million have been already slaughtered, murdered. They call it euthanized. That's a horrible word. It means murder. Due to avian flu. Why? Because the producers don't want to lose the other part. Egg prices. And call me a liar, but look it up. Go to the store. Oh, I remember I used to buy them for 10 cents. Now it's $3 for a dozen of eggs. Next slide. Here are my suggestions. As horrible as they may seem to you, as unkind, as unloving, as unprogressive, all of those horrible things, if you want to stay alive in today's world, you better keep a close watch on this heart of yourselves, your bodies, Don't live in a fantasy world. Diseases are out there, these wild game. You see that loving mother giving her child a wildlife experience, feeding the wild animals. She doesn't know where those Canadian geese came from or where they're going. Avoid wild birds and stay at a distance. Yes, they cough. Yes, they poop. Yes, they pee. And yes, they can cross-contaminate you. Avoid contact with domestic birds or poultry that appear ill or to have died. That's hard to do if you work in a bird factory or a poultry factory, but you need to exercise precautions. Avoid surfaces that may have been contaminated by wild or domestic bird feces. If you have a feeder, one of my clients is one of the world's largest bird feeding, they call them critter feeding organizations. I will tell you, use gloves. Change the clothing that you have. Particularly if you're under a medication or you're older, monitor your flu-like symptoms. What are they? If you're lethargic, it means you're slow, you don't have the energy you used to have. It means if you have fever or if you have muscle aches, this too will pass. But I will warn you, when I worked at Cepheid, we have more people in hospitals that die from flu than anything else. Ask a physician who knows anything, who's not interested in putting you on a drug regime or cut on you. But I'll say this to you. We haven't heard the end of H1N1 because pharmaceutical companies and politicians are always looking for a new scam to pull over your head. Just think, just a little under 100 people, over 1.4 billion are affected. Think about that math for a minute. Thank you very much.